You can change the world. Learn from proven change makers from all walks of life. They'll show you how to raise money, invest for impact, and so much more. You can start small. Start today and never quit. You can change the world by strengthening your superpowers. Now, welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. We are thrilled today to have you here with us as we've got Jennifer Wilde and Dan McClure here. They are the authors of Do Bigger Things, and we're just thrilled to have them. You don't want to miss this. If you would like to change the world, you don't want to miss this episode because they're going to teach us how to do that today. Jennifer, Dan, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Likewise.
Yeah, Dan, thank you very, very much. Jennifer, why don't we start with you? If you would, just take a minute and tell us about Do Bigger Things.
So it's a book that Dan and I wrote together, and we worked together for a couple of years around how to solve complex problems, how to help people who run through walls into burning buildings, who deal with some really interesting big stuff. And as we worked with companies and governments and charities and a number of organizations, we said, we should really write this down. We should really share this. Other people should know about this. And so we started to write this book, Do Bigger Things. And it's very exciting for us and hopefully other people in that it talks about how do we go from where we have been in a world where things are very simple, problems are kind of, I need a new cup or a slightly better water filter, to I'm trying to solve homelessness. I'm trying to help women deal with gender-based violence. I'm trying to work out how we deal with climate change. And none of these are easy, simple problems. And so as innovation experts, we said, okay, let's give people some tools and some practices and some thinking to get their heads around and get their hands on these difficult and interesting and important problems that we need to be dealing with.
Yeah, this is really critical stuff that you're talking about. And Dan, I think one of the key themes of the book is the role of creating and utilizing an ecosystem to create this accomplishment of doing bigger things. Tell us about how the ecosystem plays in and how we use that.
Well, Jen mentioned, small innovations. And I think there's a lot of temptation based on the last 20 years to see innovation as being the new mobile app or maybe even the new AI application. But when you look at like real world challenges, they're not just about inventing something. Instead, what you're looking at is people, organizations, governments, technology. All of these things are connected together when you're really solving a big, complex problem. And so maybe we should be innovating those ecosystems, that whole collection of people, technology, and organizations, rather than focusing on, just one small piece. And so that's really what this is about. It's ecosystem innovation.
Yeah, and this is profoundly important because, we can all do bigger things, right? If we figure out how to leverage this ecosystem. Jennifer, why don't you take a minute and tell us how you came kind of career-wise to this point and how you've kind of learned some of these lessons through your career.
So, Devin, I started my career working in humanitarian emergencies. So think of a big earthquake in Nepal or Haiti, conflicts in Pakistan or Sri Lanka, typhoons, floods, etc. And so we would land in these places and we'd have to scale up very quickly. We'd have to find a lot of funding very quickly. And we'd have to we'd have to speak to people and work out what are the problems that will really change people's lives? What do they need? And food and water and housing and these kind of broad topics are always there. But what is it in food and what is it in housing that will really change people's lives, give people opportunities for the future? And that's a really complex question. And you can have all of the people to chat to and all of the money in the world, and you need to work out how to deal with these very complex problems, which kind of spidered into loads of different things. And when I met Dan in Berkeley, where we were talking about humanitarian challenges at an innovation roundtable, we both realised that for much of our lives we had been working in ecosystems. So rather than saying, I've got a hammer, there's a nail, we're good, we've been trying to work out what is the problem that is linked to other problems that we need to solve. What is this kind of grouping of things here that we can create a puzzle out of, shift things around, change things, and create a new ecosystem, a new solution, transform the problem you're looking at. And so I think that was really enlightening for me, talking to Dan about that and then putting that into practice with a number of different kinds of organizations. And it's interesting for me now, I'm building a AI assistant for busy parents, which really looks at how to create more equality for what I call the default parent, the parent who does the most of the parenting and household work. And that's not just an app, that's not just AI, but it's piecing through the cognitive overload of someone. It's piecing through administrative and emotional burdens and thinking through each of those pieces in the person's life and how they fit together to create a much better life for that person. So you can see how somebody could say, I'm going to create an app, I'm going to create an AI assistant, and it doesn't go anywhere. There's millions of these things. It doesn't go anywhere because it's not actually solving the problem. It's not creating an outcome or value for that person. And often that's not just one thing, it's lots of pieces together.
Yeah. It's fascinating to think about. Dan, tell us a little bit about your experience and how you came to this work and conclusion around ecosystems and other aspects of the book.
It's interesting. I got a regular job when I got out of college, and in truth, I wasn't very good at it. I was an engineer designing pipelines. I mean, it was good, honest work. But the truth was, I finally was able to excel when the industry got deregulated and everything was blown up and they needed to reinvent everything. And that kind of burning building turned out to be like a place where I found a lot of energy. Suddenly, the constraints of the past were gone, the opportunities were much broader, and the demand for change was bigger. And I found like that's the place where I got energy working. And so I've tried to do that pretty much my entire life, whether as an entrepreneur, working as a consultant, and it's been an exciting career. And I think for a lot of us who are by nature that sort of big picture thinker, it's a place of opportunity. This reimagining ecosystems becomes a playground where you can do really big ideas.
Yeah. What are some of the examples that you illustrate in the book that you could share with us quickly? Maybe Jennifer, you could take a turn and share one of your favorite examples from the book of how people are using this to do bigger things.
Mm. Gosh, there's so many super interesting things to choose. One of the examples I used in the book was I built and ran a set of innovation labs around the world. And I was walking through a refugee camp in Iraq full of Syrian people, and a woman invited me in. And she was talking about, and so what we often ask is, what's the most important thing in your life? If we could help with anything, what would that be? And we're sitting in a tiny a one-room place in the desert in Iraq. It's really hot. This is a middle-class family from Syria. The woman was a teacher in Syria, and she says, all I want is I want my kids to go to university. And you think, in any other place, that might, in the place she used to live, that's not a significant problem. Her girls were smart. She told me they'd been through high school. But out in the desert, in a one-room hut with very little reception or power or what have you, how do you connect these girls to a world where they can have opportunity in the future? And there is plenty of, on the other side, there's plenty of, like, you know, MIT or Harvard or free courses online, etc., which might be able to support them. And there's tons of educational tech sitting in the back of classrooms that hasn't been used, or, you know, people can't charge it because there's no charging options, or the internet doesn't work. And so that challenge of connecting smart girls or women in the back of Iraq to a plethora of educational options, of possible entrance exams, of funding that they could get. So what does that look like? And it's not a piece of technology. And so working with those people and the innovation labs and funding mechanisms to think about, there is a woman who cares about something deeply. There are her children who also want to go to university. Are they able, you know, what are the different kind of ecosystems can we create? Can we link them to universities? Can we link them to power sources? Can we link them to technology that they could do courses of? Can we link them to places in which they could do this, because they're unable to do this in this one room home for a bunch of reasons? What else needs to exist for those girls to go to university, to find funding, to keep learning? What's the first step? What's the next step? What's the third step? And so thinking this through and building out projects like this really excites me, because that's some of the most there's some of the most important, you know, inequality issues in the world, some of the most unfair places, and there's millions of people like that. There's millions, billions perhaps, of people around the world who need something like that. But a piece of educational technology has not yet solved that problem.
Yeah, yeah. There are so many problems that are complex and need, the full sort of ecosystem solution, isn't there? It's not just one or two. It's most. Most problems really require that as a solution, right? Dan, go ahead.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because it's tempting to think it's only the really big complex problems. Like, we've done work on climate change, and how do you change entire national systems of transportation or power or agriculture? And those, are on their face complex. But actually, one of my favorite examples from the book is a simple bakery. And, we don't think of the bakery down the street as being a complex ecosystem, but you think about it. There's bakers, there's owners, there's city services, there are customers. It's that combination of people, organizations, resources, and technology that make an ecosystem. And the cool thing about that is that means the owner of the bakery can be an ecosystem innovator too. And that really helps democratize this sort of type of innovation power, because you don't have to be solving climate change. You don't have to be dealing with a refugee crisis. You can just simply be the owner of a bakery and still thinking in this big, powerful way.
Yeah, yeah, that's so powerful, so powerful. Well, listen, everybody, we're going to take a quick break here, and we're here today with Jennifer Wilde, Dan McClure, the authors of Do Bigger Things, talking about how to do bigger things. And when we come back, we're going to talk to these two amazing people about their superpowers. So stick around. You don't want to miss this.
Hope to raise money from the impact crowd. Good investors are as interested in community, social or environmental impact as you. Connect with Funding Hope, an SEC-registered FINRA member crowdfunding portal to learn how to raise capital from the impact crowd. Scan the QR code now.
Join us for SuperCrowd 24 for 2 full days of wealth and impact creating content at this virtual conference on April 17th and 18th. We'll have 100 speakers and live pitch sessions. Learn how to invest like a pro and raise money from the crowd. Save 50% with the discount code SUPERCROWD at thesupercrowd.com.
You can get in on the ground floor to help fix the climate crisis for as little as $100. Pause now to scan the QR code to get started or visit s4g.biz/raisegreen. You can be a green at Raise Green.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Jennifer Wilde and Dan McClure, the authors of Do Bigger Things, and they have done some big things, that's for sure. But we're going to shift gears now and talk to them about their superpowers. Dan, let's start with you. You've accomplished a lot. What is your superpower?
You know, I think it's interesting when people talk about superpowers because you tend to lean into like, oh, this is the super thing I can do. I think what's really hit me throughout my life is the wide range of things I can't do. So I'm not very good at detailed things. I'm not very good at structured or organized project management. But I am really good at seeing the big picture. I can't walk down the street without sort of having systems appear in front of my eyes. And that's kind of my one trick pony. I see how things fit together. And that actually makes me pretty well suited for being an ecosystem innovator, but it also means I'm kind of like well aligned on problems where there's lots of different pieces. So hire me to see a big picture, maybe not so much to do your taxes.
That's great. Now, Jennifer, what about you? Again, you've done, you had a stellar career. You've written an amazing book. What is your superpower?
Hiring Dan to do my taxes. It's interesting. I was talking to someone the other day and they introduced me as a force of nature. And it actually made me think of like, what does that mean? I was like, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And I think the driving motivation of my life has really been inequality. I hate things that aren't fair. And so I think my superpower is harnessing that, is saying what I can run through walls, I can, make big things happen where I am deeply motivated. And for me, that's around inequality.
Well, that is, such a profound and important thing. Just love that. Dan, let's talk about your big picture skill a little bit. Can you think of an example of, a specific problem where you were able to see the big picture and identify the solution that got implemented?
That's kind of like the only thing I've ever done. So let me give you a couple of contrasting examples. One would be I worked with one of the largest global automakers, and they were trying to respond to this whole new digital disruption that was going on. And what you realized is the digital disruption forced the entire organization to reimagine itself and hook together those silos that had been so carefully, separated from one another. That's the kind of thing that I enjoy and I can see doing. But I've also worked with like small individual innovators, like an innovator group in Zambia that was trying to communicate health information to remote communities. And so in both cases, you're seeing a big picture, but it's really very different environments that you see them.
Yeah. Jennifer, let's jump to you quickly. Can you think of a time or a specific example when you were able to use that resentment, that hatred you called it, for inequality and injustice, to address a problem successfully?
Over and over again in everything I've done, similar to Dan. I mean, right now I'm building a AI assistant for busy parents, and it drives me nuts that when I talk to many of my close friends, they are frustrated, sick, overwhelmed with just everything they have to do. And there's plenty of research about this. You know, often women do 15 hours or more housework or work with the kids. Those who have arguments around childcare and who does it are more likely to get divorced. People who look after the children and the household work are more likely to have compound stress, to feel anxiety, resentment, to have long-term health issues. And this could be women, by the way, and it could also absolutely be men. And it really frustrates me. And so working in the AI space, right? It's incredibly difficult. Things are changing all the time. There was a new AI agent released today, Devin, really interesting. Do I use that? Do I not? There's constantly new releases, new kinds of products. It's a whole sea of chaos. How do you structure that chaos and keep moving forward? How are you always raising all of those boats together? And this happens all the time in social entrepreneurship, that there is constant chaos, and especially if you're working on any of the kind of bleeding edge tech, that's kind of doubled and tripled. And so being able to say, what is my purpose? What do I care deeply about? What is the value I really want to create? And coming back to that every week, every day, being able to structure then that chaos around it, that grounds me and gives me the ability to continue. Because I think if I didn't have that, I'd just be like, it's too much, too hard. I want to spend time with my kids, which I do, but being able to say, this is worth it long term, and I'm focused on that outcome, focused on
Yeah.
that.
Fantastic. Now, quickly, I want to ask both of you very quickly for one tip. Dan, tell us one tip to help us see the big picture. Jennifer, tell us one tip to help us see the injustice.
Step back and embrace the complexity. Don't get scared by all the different parts. Take the time to look at it, and that'll give you power.
Excellent. Jennifer?
Don't pretend it's just one problem. There are many problems and many solutions, and structure it in a way that creates value and that really solves it for the person you're dealing with.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I want to thank both of you for taking the time to be with us today. Your insights are just profoundly important. Let me ask each of you to take 15 seconds and tell us how people can learn more, connect with you, buy the book, et cetera, et cetera. Jennifer, why don't you go first?
Yeah, great. Buy the book. Ta-da! It's on Amazon. You could go to my website, Try Lighten, if you're interested in an AI assistant. Talk to Dan or I on LinkedIn, innovationecosystem.com. We're here. We're excited about doing big things and excited about helping you to do them too.
Excellent. Dan?
If you want to participate in a community of big picture thinking innovation choreographers, we're kicking off a new community on LinkedIn for innovation choreographers. So it would be great to have you as part of the ongoing conversation.
Oh, fantastic. This is great. Well, listen, I want to thank both of you for taking the time to be with us today. This has just been a great conversation. Your book is, just so readable, so helpful, so practical. I'm grateful that you would come and talk to us about that. It helps me to understand it better. I hope lots of people will read it and listen to this podcast, watch this show. We want people to enjoy this and learn from you. So thank you very, very much. We wish you every success with the book and the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
very much.
All righty. Let's do some good.